Hello, friends. Uncle Marv here with another episode of the IT Business Podcast, broadcasting from the great the great fighting city of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania. We're here at the ASCII Cup, the last ASCII Edge event of the year, and I'm joined by another longtime veteran of the ASCII group, and we're going to just chat about things and see where life is. I'm talking about Josh Liberman, owner of Net Sciences out of New Mexico. Fantastic organization there. Josh, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Marv. Here in the city of brotherly fighting love, having a good time.
I'm trying to talk about, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Rocky movie, and the heartbeat of our American culture, where the Liberty Bell is, and all of that stuff.
This is where a lot of the stuff first happened.
Yes, it is. It is. Now, I know this isn't quite related to ASCII and our event there, but you've been on the road, man. You've been traveling.
Yeah, I'm happy to say I've been doing some vacationing. We literally flew in last night, just before happy hour from France. We had been out there for a couple of weeks, and ironically, we had done the same thing 6 years ago. We flew into the Boston ASCII event for that show in 2019 from Paris. There's a nonstop, and it's a pretty good schedule. I'm going to make it work.
Nice.
That way I get to bring Heidi along too, because she has no choice.
Right. Now, was it just vacation? I know there was a conference over there. So did you attend any of that?
I didn't. Last time I did DattoCon in 2019, but this was just for us to travel around Burgundy and live kind of a rural life for a while, and then to spend the last 4 days in Paris.
All right. That seems to be the thing this year. Everybody's traveling abroad. I know a couple of people that went to Ireland for a week or 10 days. Europe must be cheap to travel over there now.
Yeah, absolutely not. It wasn't, but and it's too bad, because when I was lucky enough that I bought a bunch of euro back when it was more or less parity, $1 to the euro, and it's about 20% the other way right now. But no, it's not that it's cheap, but I think a lot of people are, in general, experiencing more things than they're buying things, and I think that it's actually a good thing. But holy mackerel, the flights, the hotels, the travel, even in the serious shoulder season of mid-October, it was busy. We went with the absurdly naive idea that we'd go see Notre Dame, and we got out front, and there was maybe 4,000 people online. Seriously.
Wow.
And I said, wow, I don't even think we'll be able to get past to the point where they're turning you away.
But that's open to the public, though, right?
It is.
You didn't have to have tickets or anything.
You do. Yeah, you have to go through and get tickets. Yeah, they rebuilt it, as you probably know, in the last few years.
Right.
And to get a true tour, now you can walk around it, and indeed we did, and took some photos of the 4,000 people visiting Notre Dame. But that's probably an understatement. It wasn't cheap to be in France, and it usually isn't. But it's all relative, and we found wonderful deals on great food, great drink. I mean, I can't even tell you how much we overdid it for 10 or 12 days. I feel like I need a month to recover and probably 3 months to lose the weight.
Well, you got one more party here you got to partake in. So
we'll get through it somehow.
All right. Josh, I want to ask you a question. You've been on the show many times, and we've talked about your business. We've talked about ASCII. But one of the things we have not talked about is I read somewhere that your Net Sciences business is the longest standing small IT provider in the area. Is that true?
Wow. I'm not sure I know the answer to that. I can say that I started a business called PC Services in 1990, but it was really a sideline until I left government employ at the end of 95, or close to the end.
Okay.
And then started Net Sciences. So it's either 30 or 35 years, depending on how you want to measure it.
Okay.
It really was the same business. So we're certainly a long-standing one, but I don't honestly know the answer to that.
All right.
I
give you something to think about when you go home.
I could do a little research. I have a couple ideas. I do know somebody who was doing what I did in the 90s, building PCs, and he actually moved into the VoIP field, and he's been running a VoIP business since before anybody could even spell VoIP. I think he started in the same year that I did, and there are a couple of fellows who have passed away that had PC businesses that started a couple of years before me. But I guess I'm still living, so maybe the longest living. I don't know. Now I got to figure it out.
All right. So I'm going to call your company NSI because that's where I've seen it there. And you guys at this point now do complete IT service, managed services, the whole kit and caboodle, right?
Yeah, I mean, very simply, we started in '95 as Net Sciences or NSI. Unfortunately, I didn't grab that domain name. That would have been valuable today.
Would have been, yes.
It actually already belonged to Network Solutions. But anyway, we started out really as a system integrator. We built machines and put them together into networks. Soon thereafter, we connected them to the internet and started to secure them. Soon thereafter, we became a broader solution provider. And right around our 10th year, so right around 2005, we started doing managed services without knowing that. We were monitoring services using things like WhatsApp Gold or Event Log Monitor, and I think it was called Real VNC.
It still is.
Yeah. We were out there doing that sort of stuff without realizing what we were doing. Proactive service is what I called it. Right. Because I'm a marketing genius. So that proactive service became an MSP service in 2010. And then in 2015, I abandoned anybody that wasn't letting us do only that. So for 10 years anyway, we've done nothing but full MSP. And the 5 years before that, almost fully.
Now, your version of the MSP, before it was the MSP, was it just simply... Was it flat rate at that time, or
no? I guess that's where I draw
hours?
the line.
Okay.
I draw the line at becoming a true MSP by going to a truly flat rate. So in 2010, we offered that flat rate, and we started to migrate our clients. But by 2015, we'd only gotten half of them moved. So I just drew the line. I realized even if we lost the majority of the remainder, and we did, we could afford to make that transition. So we've been flat rate since 2015.
Okay. I know that there's a lot of MSPs still struggling with that concept, although most of us now are starting to realize, based on the pumpkin plan, that, we don't need to keep every single customer. So the ones that are not willing to jump on board with some sort of agreement, we're letting go and stuff. Have you had conversations with other members that, still struggle with that? And what advice
every week
do you have for them?
You have to be realistic. It's easy to go out on the forums and portray bravado and say, well, and just get rid of them. I did eventually get to that point, but I didn't start that way. And I got to the point where, and there was only two of us in the business at the time I pulled the trigger.
Okay.
Maybe three, I guess. But I decided that it was worth the risk because it was too much of a diversion of our energies and attention and too much wasted time. It really is true that the folks that won't engage with you fully are the noisiest, most needy, demanding, and least happy. And that just doesn't add up properly. Right. I was lucky. I was able to do that. I called it the shotgun pumpkin plan. I just basically sent an email and said, we've been talking for a few years, and at this point, there's really no going back. We're committed to this process, and we're going to support those that want to take that journey with us. And I lost 40% of my seats and 60% of my clients in 1 month.
Yeah.
It was very sudden, and it turned around in a year. So it was spooky for a little while.
Yeah.
It wasn't Halloween, but it was spooky, and it worked out well in my case.
Yeah. You mentioned the ASCII forum, and I actually caught you talking with a gentleman I interviewed earlier, Joe Balzarati.
Yeah.
And I heard you guys chatting about longevity in the ASCII group.
Yeah.
So I think he's got you by a couple of years?
I think he's at 32 or 33 years. I joined when I started the business, so that would have been the very end of 95, although I might have written the check.
He's got you. He joined in 92.
92, yeah. He's certainly been a long-term member For me, it's just been since Net Sciences. I did not even know about ASCII until I think maybe the day before I joined. As soon as I found out that there were other people out there thrashing around like me, that I might be able to learn from them, I leaped at that opportunity.
Now, had they come close to you for an event, or did you just hear about them through the grapevine?
Yeah, through the grapevine. No, nobody really comes to New Mexico for an event. Sonic had a partner conference in 2002 in Santa Fe, which was the first event. I mean, Microsoft had an office and an event there in 1999. But other than having private things, the HP and others, Ingram meet there, but having general events like ASCII, I'm not aware of one in the last 20 years.
I don't pay attention past west of the Mississippi, so I can't help you there.
Well, I go all over the country and even Europe for this stuff. But yeah, I mean, if they've been happening, they've been under my radar. But I look for a reason to travel, and this usually fills the bill.
So did you attend every event this year for ASCII?
No, I missed one, Toronto.
You missed Toronto?
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't really count.
Oh, it counts. I had so much going on. I literally had to be in Portland, Oregon the next morning at 10 a.m. and there was no way to find an overnight flight. So I gave up and thought, wow, I don't have to take an overnight flight across the country. Yeah. That's cool.
Well, Toronto is home of our ASCII Member of the Year, Mr. Chad Kim.
Yeah, that's correct.
So, yep. Shout out, Chad.
Hey, man.
That's it. So let me ask you this. Not only do I see you active in ASCII, I see you active in a lot of other things as well, but you seem as though you have an affinity and a loyalty to ASCII. Can I ask if that's true, and what was it that got that affinity for ASCII?
It's certainly true. I've kind of adopted it as an extended professional family, I guess. I think what happened is that early on I ran into a lot of folks that were groping in the dark, fortunately not literally, and I realized there was a lot of affinity there. There was a lot of similarity and going to be helpful. As I started to figure things out, I also started to write and speak in the industry about 15 years ago. I felt like I could actually do something beneficial for others, not just figure it out myself, but maybe share the thrash and the journey is the phrase people like. That was very good. But ASCII was just more familial and more collegial. It was more of a more cohesive a group than anybody else that I was exposed to. And I certainly, I'm a member of many other communities and also have been in several peer groups.
Nice. And I know also that you get the ear of a lot of people as well. I don't know if just because you just walk up and ask the questions that we all think, and you'll sit off to the side and be willing to talk to people. But of course, you have done that with Alan Weinberger as well, our deceased CEO, founder of ASCII Group. So I've been asking a couple of the members here, what are your fondest memories of Alan?
I had a very specific and deeply imprinted one. I met him about 15 years ago, which is really when I started regularly coming to ASCII shows. 5 years before that I did a few, but regularly. And I walked up, he was speaking with some folks. I knew who he was, having seen a picture and been told who he was. We spoke for a minute or two, and his question was, well, what is your degree in? And it wasn't a challenge question. He was saying, obviously, you've been educated. We were discussing something. I said, well, I got a philosophy degree, but that wasn't worthless enough, so I went back and got a linguistics degree. He said, really? I said, no, I got them at the same time. But yeah, same story. And immediately, he wanted to discuss Hammurabi. He wanted to discuss Maimonides. He wanted to discuss John Locke. He wanted to discuss ethics, morality, and law, and the intersection thereof, which was, if you know anything about Alan, a 1 hour long discussion, multiple drinks, and I realized right then you got to be careful if he wants to talk about something, because he really wants to delve deeply. And just today, speaking with his son Ben, I said that it's funny, as Ben will tell you, his head is full of ideas all the time. Sometimes it was hard to get him to put wheels on him. So, and to be more precise, a few years back, we were somewhere, we'd had dinner, a few of us, And I asked him to call an Uber, and he got on, or he asked me if I wanted him to, and I said sure. And he got on and he started talking with people as he was doing it. About 8 minutes into it, I said, did you order the car? It was, oh. I said, okay, yeah, putting wheels on it.
Yeah.
He wanted to talk about the big things. That's where his head was. Obviously, he ran ASCII and grew it for years and built a really good, solid community that can persist without him. And that is probably the most impressive thing. To build a small business, which ASCII is, that can not only persist without you when you're out traveling like mine does, but persist when you're really not there.
Yeah.
And he did that and was a blast to hang out with.
Yeah. So I will concur with your statement about Alan and his breadth of not just knowledge, but his ideas. I had the joy of sitting with, Lauren, his wife, and she was sharing some stories of the early days and how it was hard to keep him on track.
Yeah.
Even as he's growing ASCII, he had all these other aspirations in his head that were just, each one of themselves would have been, an astronomical feat for any of us. And he's thinking of these all simultaneously.
Oh, yeah. And he would, out of nowhere, I had no idea he was interested in making a movie. Then he comes up to me and tells me the story of it. And then a year later, he tells me it's done. And a year later, I hear it happen. It was like, wow, where did that come from?
Yep.
One thing after the next. And yeah, he was really hard to nail down. One discussion, I am something of a polymath and a polyglot as well, and I could follow along, and we could have broad, wide-ranging discussions, but you sure couldn't get him to decide what was for dinner.
Well, what do they say about, super smart people? They're smart in certain areas, but
yeah,
in those little mundane, non-essentials, I'll eat, but I don't need to spend a lot of energy worrying about it.
He was endlessly interested in the next thing, and that was surprising. And honestly, he was getting older, and I thought, well, he's probably going to step back from that way, but to the best of my knowledge, that did not happen.
No, did not, to the very end.
Yeah.
All right, so thank you for sharing that and sharing your thoughts and feelings about Alan. I'll ask one last question since we are here at ASCII Edge, and it would be in terms of, what, I guess, role has things like, the ASCII networking, the peer group, or is there, anything else community-wise within ASCII that would stand out for you as playing a big role in your success that you would pass on to, a future prospect?
Well, I would say that without a doubt, I trust ASCII members quickly. And that is not something I can usually say across the breadth and depth of my life. And it's been really amazing. I've received, we do some specialty work way back in the day, Hyper-V clusters, and ever since and all along, the Sonic Wall, more complex Sonic Wall projects. And I will do things for ASCII members. We share work. I know roughly 2,000 people in the industry, and about 1,000 of them are ASCII members. I have a strange mind. I don't necessarily remember their name, but I do remember their cell number and where they live. So I can make referrals off the top of my head, as I did today, for people looking to get something done somewhere. Now, I also have contacts and details in there to check myself,
Right.
But because, I'm getting a little older. But the reality is it's a wonderful community, and in the most sincere sense of the word. So, yeah, there are buying discounts and benefits like newsletters and insurance and on and on and on.
Yeah.
But the real benefit is that it's an actual community of people who are trying to help each other. And that's cool.
So I had one last question, but I'm going to throw another bonus one in here.
Yeah.
At what point did you develop that unwavering trust?
Probably not till I started coming to shows and meeting people personally. I am that way. I used to, 30 years ago when I started at Sciences anyway, I used to go out and meet my vendors in Fremont, California, or City of Industry, California, or wherever they were, Chicago, anywhere in the country, D&H in Pennsylvania. I would go out and shake hands and meet people eye to eye, and I've always been that way my whole life. It's not a thing anymore. I recognize that very few people have that or of that ilk at this point. But with ASCII, that trust developed partly through the forum, the information sharing there. Yeah. But that was more or less concurrent with the same time that I started going to the show. So about 2005 to 10, I started meeting people and developing that trust, because in real life is still a good thing.
Right. So that kind of goes along with the opening that Jessie always has when she talks about ASCII Group. You get in, you get out what you put in, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Yeah, and you can, I mean, when I first jumped in, did I remember, when I first jumped in the MSP field, they had a deal with one of the RMM vendors. And I was literally saving 3 times as much per month as it cost me to be a member. Now, that is the very definition of a no-brainer, and if you can't do that math, you really shouldn't be doing this business. But that wasn't what got me interested. It was the knowledge and actually meeting the vendors, because there was a time, this seems funny today, where I didn't really know any of the vendors.
Right.
You know, now I know 1,500 of them, but at the time, I was just beginning to learn what the tools were and what these could offer us, and what the tools could do once we learned how to weave appropriately with those tools. Yeah. So that was great too.
Yeah. I remember when I first joined, the discounts that I got through my distributors paid for the membership in 2 months.
Yeah.
I mean, just
the very definition of a no-brainer. I had in '99, the last law firm that decided they wanted to do something about Y2K met with me at 4 p.m. on the 31st of December. And I thought that was humorous enough. But after a few minutes of talking with them, their decision was they would just do extra backups. So now they had to debate buying a box of backup tapes. And I ended up just opening up the yellow pages and saying, look, there's a whole lot of folks can help you, but it's 4 o'clock on New Year's Eve. I'm headed home, and I'm not going to be one of them. And I left there thinking there were 6 or 7 partner level people in that room. It was a $150 box of tapes. In the first 6 minutes, they had spent that money debating whether to buy the box of tapes. And I realized the phrase no-brainer doesn't apply to everyone.
Right.
And ASCII is a no-brainer if you're going to engage. If you're not, you probably need to think it through, but it might still give you one special deal that you'd love. But if you're willing to put some effort into it, yeah, it's a no-brain seller.
Absolutely. All right, Josh, last question.
Okay.
ASCII Cup, last event of the year, the big blowout party.
Yep.
Costume themed.
Oh, man.
What are you dressing as?
Well, I'm at a disadvantage. I came in from a trip in Europe, but I did bring my muscle shirt, and I can still rock it. So as long as you can still say, yo, Adrian, I think I'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Josh, thank you very much for hanging out. It's good to see you again in person. This might be the last event of the year I see you.
I'm going to be at a little one in CVX Expo in Phoenix next week, and I'm going to be at Channel Pro a week after that in Orange County. But after that, it's just personal stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, enjoy yourself while you're here. I'll let you get back to some of the sessions and stuff. And
Okay.
I don't see your little head shop station. Is that going to be up?
No, I'm not shooting this show.
You're not?
Yeah. I think there is somebody, but I'm for a number of reasons, including having been in Europe the last 2 weeks, and I just decided it would be nice to just be a civilian.
Yeah, take a break.
Yeah.
Take a break. All right, Josh, thank you very much. And that's going to do it, folks. And we'll be back with more from ASCII Cup in Philadelphia. Holla.